As this year comes to an end and the new year approaches, a lot of us are looking at discovering our strengths so we can make the most of next year. But knowing what we're good at is really only the first step. The real shift happens when we stop collecting insights and start using what we know about ourselves to make better decisions, avoid unnecessary detours, and build a life and a business that actually fits. Welcome to The Solo Grind, your weekly coffee break for building a business solo without losing yourself in the process. Today is all about strengths, not just discovering them, but leaning into them and using them in a way that supports the life we're creating. So grab your coffee, get comfy cozy, and let's talk about turning self-awareness into momentum. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Solo Grind. I am sitting here literally comfy cozy with coffee cup in hand, candle burning, and my heated seat cushion on full blast because it is chilly in this lovely South Dakota air, but I am excited to be spending this time with you. I have to say, when I started planning today's episode, I had a lot of really big, grand ideas. I was on vacation at the time and coming to the end of that vacation. So I was really rested, feeling completely recharged, and ready to roll up my sleeves and dive back into this wonderful life that I've built for myself, which includes this podcast. So my plan was simple. At least I thought it was simple. I was going to do a ton of research for you. I was going to analyze that research in great detail, and then I was going to share all of my findings with you. I had a list of strength assessments, personality tests, and other quizzes I was going to take in the name of research. I even took a few while sipping coffee on the balcony of our hotel room, with every intention of diving deep into my results when I got home. In this deep dive of research, I wanted to analyze how each test was presented and the depth of the results. I also wanted to take a close look at the focus for each assessment or quiz and make my own recommendation who I thought would benefit the most from each one. Once all of this was done, I was going to come here to the microphone and share all of those findings in today's episode. I even thought about doing a series of extra episodes so I could really go in depth with all of my wonderful findings. Those results are all still sitting in my inbox. The deep dive that I planned never happened, and I realized that this was one of my strengths in serious overdrive. This, my friends, is my achiever strength, which, when I am not careful, can become the overachiever strength and lead me down a whole lot of rabbit holes of busy unproductivity. So I reined myself in. I had to admit to myself that I am not a researcher, at least not in the sense of being the main part of my profession. I am a web designer and a brand strategist and a podcaster. And this podcast is about real conversations with real busy small business owners, not a research symposium. Plus, that information already exists. So why did I feel like I needed to recreate it? That is one of the flip sides of our strengths. They help us achieve our goals, but can also distract us from actually moving forward with our goals. So that is kind of why I decided to shift gears in today's episode and not just focus on how to discover your strengths, but understanding that discovering our strengths is just one piece of the puzzle. And I would have to say, an important but a very tiny piece of the puzzle. If we really want to make the most of our strengths, we need to read the results, look at the flip side so we can avoid those well hidden rabbit holes, and use that knowledge to our advantage. That, my friends, is what I hope to help you with today. Before we get started in all of that, let me take just a moment to introduce myself to those who are new around here. I am Teresa Schloop, a strategic achiever and activator who loves to learn and is always coming up with new ideas. And I do mean always, like every other minute. I use these strengths to build standout brand essentials and websites through Squarespace and WordPress for service based entrepreneurs and businesses, primarily the solo business owners like myself who have a dream too good not to pursue. If you are thinking of upleveling your online presence in the new year, please visit my website at caffeinecreative.io or simply email me at theperfectblend@caffeinecreative.io and let's schedule some time to chat. And as always, thank you so much for tuning into the Solo Grind. I truly love connecting with you through this podcast. Alrighty, now that is out of the way, introductions are done. Let's get back to our strengths. So, as I said a moment ago, the first piece of the puzzle is discovering our strengths. We are all, at least in my own personal experience, our own worst critic, which means it is hard for us to take an honest look at ourselves and see clearly what our strengths are. For example, I have a really intuitive and strategic brain. I can often see clearly potential outcomes down the road based on a simple choice to change something. I can't always explain how we will get to those potential outcomes, and not all of them are fun to consider, but I am almost always correct in my predictions. In the corporate world, this was not seen as a strength by my coworkers. They saw me as a pessimist who didn't trust their decisions. Heck, I didn't see this as a strength because I had felt bad poking holes into their plans, even when I knew the potential fallout could be huge, especially for my team who fielded all of the customer calls. And then my good friend and colleague, Jeff, suggested that we take the Strengths Finder assessment as a team. This is now known as the Clifton Strengths. This assessment helped us realize that I wasn't being a negative Nelly. I was simply employing one of my strengths that could help us prepare for worst case scenarios before they happened and even avoid them altogether. Which brings me back to the point that I really want to make with this story. We don't see ourselves clearly. Thankfully, we don't have to develop that skill or become a researcher. There is actually quite a few different assessments and quizzes out there that help us identify exactly what our strengths are. Some are directly focused on strengths, others focus more on personality traits or behavioral styles. And I found one that even focuses on our instincts to help us determine what our strengths are. So I have no doubt you are probably familiar with a few of these and may have even taken one or two yourself. But just in case this is new to you, I thought I'd share a little bit about a few that are popular or that just honestly intrigued me while I was making my long list of ones to explore. Now, full disclosure, I did not do the thorough in-depth research I had originally planned. I actually leaned on Claude AI to help me streamline the breakdown of these assessments that I am about to share. So, thanks, Claude, for your help on this one. The first one that I want to share is the Clifton Strengths, as this is the one I'm most familiar with. What I love about Clifton Strengths is its focus on what you naturally do best, rather than focusing on weaknesses that you need to fix. It is grounded in positive psychology and comes with very detailed reports that include action steps to help you embrace your strengths. As I shared a moment ago, this was an really eye-opening assessment for me as it helped me realize that some of my greatest strengths, like strategic thinking, were the things I learned to view as a personality flaw within myself. This assessment is particularly popular in a more corporate setting and is great for team building and career coaching. But it can read a little bit boring, and so the results are often dismissed. Don't worry, I will show you how to pull out the best from this report without having to bore yourself to sleep in just a moment if you already have those results in your pocket. I have to say, too, that I actually took the Clifton Strengths Assessment twice. Originally, when I was still in the corporate world, obviously, and then again to help me fully transition into this entrepreneurial life. While my top 10 really didn't change, the order of them did in the new assessment. And this helped me with shifting my world in just about every possible way. And I will say this, I'm sharing this because if you took this assessment in the corporate world and think maybe I should do it again, I don't know that you really need to, because again, my results didn't change that much. It did help me shift into this world. All right, the next one that I want to share with you, I've actually never heard of, but it really intrigued me, and that is the Colby A Index. If anyone out there has any experience with this assessment, I would love to hear more about it. This assessment measures your instinctive way of taking action and how you naturally solve problems and get things done. It is ideal for entrepreneurs who want to understand their natural productivity style and decision-making approach. It's very popular with those who need to make hiring decisions, delegate, or understand why certain tasks are draining themselves and their team while others are energizing to us all. Now, yep, I pulled all of that out of Claude because, as I said, I don't have any experience with this particular assessment. What intrigued me, however, is the fact that it measures our instinctual nature. I lean heavily on my instincts, especially when solving problems and facing challenges. And so that's what made me find this particular assessment interesting. This also leads me into the next one and final one that I want to share for this episode, the Enneagram. Enneagram is incredibly popular, especially in the entrepreneurial world. And I swear, if I had $1 for every time somebody asked me, "What's your Enneagram type?" I could pay for another really fabulous vacation. I am sorry, I cannot say with absolute certainty what my Enneagram number is, but I have been told that I am an 8 or maybe a 3. I did do a quick 2-question assessment and came up with type 7, but then in deeper discussions with my friend Emily, 8 shined a lot brighter. Needless to say, I seriously don't have my official Enneagram number. And while I am ready to dive down that rabbit hole and explore more because I find it fascinating, I realize that this is the learner strength in me gone astray, and I have a lot of other things that need to get done. So here is what others love the Enneagram for. It shares insights into why we think, feel, act the way we do. It helps us understand what motivates us, what we fear, and how we can use that knowledge to grow. The Enneagram is ideal for those who want to focus on self-awareness and personal development. And it is my personal belief that it is much better suited to the small business owners than, say, Clifton Strengths or the Colby A Index, especially for a solo small business owners out there. Now, again, there are a lot of other assessments out there. A list which I might include in my show notes, but I might not include them. I don't know that I want to be the one that is encouraging you to hop down a rabbit hole of unproductivity. The key thing that I want us to remember and take away from this episode is that while taking these assessments, these quizzes, discovering our strengths, it's fun, it's interesting, and it's a really great conversation starter. But if we don't use that information that we gain from these assessments, if we don't apply that knowledge and use it to our advantage, it loses all the power and potential that it has to help us create the life of our dreams. And as my friend Emily shared at the end of our very lively conversation about Enneagram strengths, the Enneagram without growth is just aggrandizing. And I would say that that is true for any assessment. So Now that we have a couple of them that we know a little bit better, if this is new in your world, let's talk about putting these to good use. When we can recognize our strengths with clarity and own them with confidence, we can better see where we shine. We know what we're really good at and what energizes us. This also means we can see more clearly the things that we struggle with. From here, we are able to choose if there is something new that we can learn or work on so that the struggle doesn't continue, or if this is simply something we need to let go of or hand off to somebody else. And let me give you an example. So, one of my strengths is activator. I make decisions very quickly and I am very quick to act. For the most part, this strength serves me very well because I'm also not afraid to pivot when new information comes forward and I need to make a new decision. But there are times when a little more careful, deliberative thinking is necessary. Deliberative thinking is not my strength at all. That is actually where my husband Todd shines. When we were building our house, we were looking for ways to save a little bit of money here and there because building a house is pricey, right? One of the things that I had suggested to help cut costs a little bit was to take the vegetable sink out of our kitchen island. I made that decision very quickly because I knew, honestly, I can live without it and I could always add it in later on if I really decided I wanted one. But Todd put some serious thought into that decision. And through his slow, deliberative thought process, he knew how much this extra sink would benefit us, and particularly me, as I do most of the cooking. He also paid attention to the fact that to add it later would be a lot more expensive than simply adding it right away. And I know my interior design listeners out there are cheering at his foresight and knowledge in this. This is just one example of how our strengths worked for us and complemented each other. Throughout the whole process of building our home, we leaned into each other's strengths, and now, after 8 years in this home, there are few decisions that we regret making. That is the power of knowing and living by your strengths. Intentional living with fewer regrets. So, how do we use our strengths? How do we take those assessments that we have and those lengthy reports, sometimes that are somewhat boring, and put them to good use? The first thing that I suggest is to take inventory of what that report is actually telling you. We don't have to do a deep dive or analyze every result from every possible angle, and we certainly don't have to take a bunch of different of assessments to gain more clarity. In fact, I think that would muddy the waters more than anything else. We simply need to look at what is presented to us and how it shows up in our lives. So, the quickest way I have found to discover this is from my own personal experience and also in doing this assessment with some of my former life coaching clients and my mastermind group. Here's what I do: grab the report and a highlighter. This is one time where I'm going to say print it off because I want your brain to shut down technology. Grab your report and a highlighter, go to the assessment report of your choice, and start highlighting the things that jump out at you as you read through that report. Once you've done that, spend a little bit of time thinking about how each one of the things you highlighted is already naturally showing up in your life and how you can use that to your advantage even more. And again, I want to share an example. So, in my Clifton Strengths report, strategic is at the top of my list. This was true both times that I've taken the assessment. And when I read through the description, here are a few of the key phrases that jumped out at me. First, you quickly discover what interests them, meaning other people. You generate ideas quickly. You draw clever linkages between facts, events, people, problems, and solutions. And you present others with numerous options at a pace that some will find very dizzying. So here's how I'm using that to my advantage. Because I can quickly identify what truly interests others, I'm able to see what people are looking for beneath the surface, especially when building their brand and website. Oftentimes, my clients don't fully realize what they want until I help bring it into visual focus. Next, because I'm able to generate ideas quickly and draw links between facts, events, problems, etc., the million ideas that I get are worth exploring a bit, especially when I'm able to take those ideas and link them to my clients, their lives, their clients, and their own experiences. And finally, because I know my ideas fly really quickly, often to an overwhelming, dizzying rate to those around me, I have learned to only share the ideas that I feel will truly resonate with my clients, their story, and their experiences. Now, I did this with all of my results, and through that, I have a lot more clarity on where I shine and where I need to ask for guidance and support, which kind of brings us to the last part of today's episode, and that is literally filling in the gaps. We all need guidance and support at times. It doesn't matter how clever we are, there are things that someone else can do better. And to quote one of my favorite books, when I counsel with myself, I can only make decisions according to what I already know. By counseling with a wise man or a wise woman, I add their knowledge and experience to my own and dramatically increase my success. This comes from the book The Traveler's Gift by Andy Andrews. So, what is it? I want you to think for just a moment. What is it that you need help with? And who can you call on for support? The key here is not to just ask the people closest to you, but to find the people who understand your goal, what you are creating, and who can support you best in that part of your life. For example, I'm going to use my husband, my fabulous husband again. He is a very, very smart man, but he knows nothing at all about running a business solo. So he is not the person that I go to for business advice because his advice would not be aligned with what I'm creating. But my mastermind group, those ladies get what I am building here and have been able to help me through some really big decisions for my business. So here's what I want you to do. And this week, I'm going to give you a little bit of homework. I want you to make a list. And this is all about putting your strengths to work without overthinking it. First, reflect on what you do really, really well and identify that. Just as I shared a moment ago and how I broke down my strength of being a strategic thinker. Then I want you to reflect on where you need support. Instead of asking yourself, what do I need to learn or what do I need to fix or what weakness am I struggling with? Ask you, where do my strengths stop serving me? Okay. Again, this is more of the positive psychology aspect of things, but I like that piece because I don't think that we need to look at ourselves as if we're broken. We are not broken. We just have different talents and strengths. Once you've done that, look for the people that can help balance out those strengths. These are the ones that you know who naturally excel where you struggle. These might be people who help you slow down and think things through, like my husband does. Or maybe you need help with execution and taking action. So you'd look for somebody who has the strength of activator like me. And don't be afraid to look beyond your inner circle of friends and family and coworkers. Not everyone who supports your growth needs to know you personally. There are great books, podcasts, assessments, and mentors out there that can play a role when it is used, what they have to share is used intentionally. Finally, I would say choose the guidance that aligns with what you're building. Advice is only helpful when it comes from someone who understands your goals, your seasons, and your reality. Alignment matters more than proximity. So, just to put this in a little bit more layman's terms and explain it, when somebody gives me business advice who has never had a successful, thriving business, I don't take their advice. They don't have what I am building, and so they can't possibly know the ins and outs of what I'm building. All right, my friends, before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with this. Discovering your strengths is only powerful when you use that knowledge with intention. When you stop trying to fix yourself and start working with who you already are, things get lighter, clearer, and much more aligned. Thank you all so much for spending your part of your day with me here on the Solo Grind, and I look forward to connecting with you again in the very near future. Thanks for tuning in to the Solo Grind. I hope today's conversation helped you look at your strengths a little bit differently, not just as traits to name, but as tools you can actually use to make clearer decisions, avoid unnecessary detours, and build a business and life that fits you better. If this episode gave you even one moment of clarity about where you shine or where you need support, I would love it if you'd take a moment to rate, review, or subscribe. It helps more solo business owners find conversations just like this one. And if you'd like to connect, you can always find me at caffeinecreative.io, where the coffee is always on and I'm always up for a conversation.